Hello. So, as I mentioned to you earlier on Facebook, in this one, it'll be kind of basic stuff. It's probably less C# than you'd want, but we'll look at adding background images, so that'll be cool. Editing the colors of the buttons so that when you click the right answer or the wrong answer, they'll alternate between red and green and so on, and that'll have a bit of scripting involved in that. We'll add a title screen so you can have a look at how the scene managing is done, and I think that'll take up about a good 15-20 minutes. So if we just start with that for now. So first off, I've created a background image which I'll need to either I'll send it to you on Facebook. It's probably the easiest option. And what we're going to do is we're just going to import that. So right click in your folder, in fact actually make a new folder first, and we'll call this images, and then in here insert a new asset. And now if you find that on your tidy desktop, unlike mine, I just need to find where I saved it. There you go. So this is naturally a one second, let me just open it and you'll see it on the other monitor. This is a really good example of what is in Wales. You know, it's cloudy and there's rugby pitches on these fields and stuff. So if we go into the canvas, and in this we will add a new UI element, and we will call this a, you could use a panel or you can use an image. I suppose the best thing is to just use an image, even though there's not really that much difference between a panel and an image anyway. So we call it an image, and then we'll drag the BG image into the source over here, and we'll set it to its native size, which is the same size as the canvas that I've set. And then over here, just like you'd use in Photoshop or Fireworks or whatever, layering works exactly the same. So if you drag it up, it will basically figure itself out. So then what you can do here is, obviously, if you rename this to, let's say, BG, or background image actually, now we've got a problem where we can't really see the text or anything, which sucks. Boo. So now in here you can just edit the color, and you can just make it darker, you know, and you just fiddle about with it again, make it as you want, who cares. And then what I'm going to do, I'm just going to make this text, I'm going to make the text bigger for a start off, 75. There we go. And then if we move that up, text prompt is that, explanation, if I just drag this down a little, and then get 1, 2, and 3, just drag that down a little more, and damn it, you can't even see the rugby posts. So if you play, it looks better. Yeah, better is a good way to put it, but it's still, you know, it's a lot to be desired still. But hey, that's the whole point of prototyping, I guess. So background image, maybe make it a little darker still. You could even just fiddle about with the color entirely, but again, it's your choice, do what you will. And once we've got either Alex or someone making graphics for us, that'll change everything. How big was this text here? Yeah, I think exponential text. This one, again, just going to make this a little bigger, and I'm going to make it bold, I think. And then, yeah, it should be okay. Cool. Now, if we just save that, and that is that one done. Now, I'm just going to do this one because it's pretty damn quick to do. So if you go to Assets and then back into Scenes, and we'll create a new scene, and we will call this menus. No, main menu scene actually. In fact, title scene is probably better, because if we then make a menu, for instance, options menu or something like that, there's no discrepancies between which is the main menu and which is the options menu and which is the menu for who knows what game modes or whatever. So if we double click that, and then it'll take us to, again, a new blank scene. So exactly like the first tutorial, we'll just create a new canvas, and then in this we have to come to that canvas scaler and scale with the screen size, make the X 1080 and the Y 1920, and then we just match that to 0.5 of the width and height. The reason for that, I don't know whether I explained it in the first one, but the reason for that is, let's say you have a really long phone for whatever reason, it will try and match the height, and it'll always match the height. And then if you have, like, let's say a tablet, it'll match the width. But what you want it to have kind of unbiased, so you want it to be like even throughout, so just 0.5, and then it'll try and match both. It's pretty straightforward. I mean, there's an argument for like trying to set it to different values, but I don't know, 0.5 tends to work, and I've never encountered the problem yet with it, so hey ho, let's just do that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to, again, create another image, and then this, we're going to add our background image again, and then set native size, and then in the image we are going to rename to background again, and then in this we're going to add, you can either add this to the background image or the canvas, but just add it to the canvas for easiness is what I would do at least, and then call this title, and let's make this awesome. And obviously if you've got a logo at this point you could just add the logo, but again we'll sort all that out later on. Welsh word game, bold and italic, and we'll make it 90 perhaps. Now same again, you might need to stretch out the box. And I'll make it bigger again, 150. Yeah. Center, and then and I'll just bring it in. I think again, it's up to you what you do with it. So yeah, once you're happy with that, just that's done, and then we will create a button. And then again, just I'm gonna make this kind of big again. And then if you go into the text of that, just play. Again, make that pretty big, 60. So what we need now is something to manage the title screen. So we'll create a new empty, and there we go. We'll drag that outside of the canvas because this is like its own thing, and we'll call this title screen manager. And then inside scripts, we'll create a new script called title screen manager script, and drag that into the title manager, and then double click it. And obviously if you're still having the problems you were having the other day, you'll have to go into your Explorer and then just open it the manual way. So in here we don't really need that much at the moment because, well, we don't really have anything to do. If we were to add like mute buttons and options menus and things like that, we could do a bit more. But for now we just need one function, and that is to load the new game. But before we can do that, we need to add a new namespace. So using Unity Engine .scene management, and then in this function it's going to be public void clicked play button, and within that it's just going to scene manager load scene, and I think it was game scene we called it. Just check. Yeah, game scene. And file, save all. Now if we come back to our play button, and we can just click on this over here, drag the title screen manager in, and tell it to click the play button. The reason I call the functions within the user interface like clicked and things like that is simply so that I know where they're all going to be. So on, let's say, Mirrors, the Mirrors game I'm making, there's like 8, maybe 9 buttons on the title screen, as well as other functions for like music, loading audio managers, and loading people's scores and things like that. So if I have all the functions which are going to be called by a button starting with clicked, I know for a fact they're always going to be right next to each other, so it's just a matter of finding which button I want then. Whereas if you called it play button or mute music button, things like that, you need to look everywhere for them. Whereas, you know, it's kind of organized that way. my personal preference, of course, but I haven't really seen anyone else do that. So yeah, if that becomes a trend, it's because of me, obviously. So if we save that and save project, I'm pretty confident this won't work. There we go. And now the reason for that is the way Unity works is that you have to have your scenes kind of built into the system. So if you go to File, Build Settings, and then open, add open scenes, that adds your scene, sure. But you're still missing the game scene, so you need to drag that in. It does make a difference on the order of these, but whichever is 0 is the scene that will load first, i.e. when you run the exe, it'll say, okay, load this scene. So it's always a good idea to have your title scene first, and then the other scenes, who gives a shit. But if you had, let's say, this is bad practice, but I've seen some of these like foreigners doing it. If you have one scene for every level, like level 1, level 2, level 3, and there's a new scene for each of them, you kind of want them in order because you can like go to next scene and things like that. So you could potentially have title scene and click go to next scene, and they'll take you to the game scene, and then game scene will take you on to scene 1, scene 2, scene 3, so on, so on, so on. But that's bad practice anyway. It shouldn't be done like that, because that means you've got shitloads of files that are pretty unnecessary, but that's another argument anyway. So if we play this now, it should work. Hey. And then yeah, we're back to this scene again. So that's cool, that's that done. So save that, back to game scene, and take that off the list. So colors for buttons. Okay, how to do this? So word 1. Yeah, so obviously I've got this button selected, and you can see that the normal color and things here. I mean, if you just change that to a bright green or whatever, that proves that works, sort of thing. It's that's all we're doing is changing the one value of whichever one we've clicked, or whichever one is right and wrong, and so on, so on, so on. So in our game manager script, this is where we'll be doing all the work. So basically, the way we'll do this is we've got an array of buttons that we sorted out in the last tutorial. So basically, we need to loop through them and decide, is this a Welsh word or not? If so, make it green. If not, don't. But in order to do that, we need some sort of indicator on each button. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a component to this, and we're going to call it option button script. And then just click create and add, and then it'll add it to our crappy assets folder over here. So if you could just take that and drag it into scripts and reload all, and now it becomes kind of self-aware and you know what it's doing. So if you open the option button script, and we're just going to have in here, we're going to have a public bool is Welsh, and we're also going to have a function called, well, we're going to create two functions actually. Public void check is Welsh, and then I'm just going to revert this back to private, sorry, is Welsh, and then check is Welsh, and sorry, kind of all over the place here, public bool check is Welsh, and then we will return is Welsh, and then we're going to do public bool set is Welsh, and we're going to do no, that's fine actually, is Welsh equals true, and then I shouldn't have deleted this, but we'll do it anyway. Void start is Welsh false. We're just going to keep is Welsh false all the time because we don't want it to screw up and end up having like two Welsh words in the same thing, even though one is gibberish. But it's better to just like cover your bases and say that one is always going to be false unless we set it to true. So I think you noticed that I changed this from void, from bool to void, because it's not returning anything. So if we save that, and then we add it to each of our buttons. So if we take option button, drag it in over here, and then we do the same with word 1. Nope, that's already got one. Word 3, and drag it in over here again. Now these three will be exactly the same. Now later down the line, I'll be looking at adding these kind of dynamically, so that depending on what options you pick in the title screen or whatever, you know, game creator mode or whatever sort of thing we add, it will basically generate these on the fly rather than being static. Because right now we've got 3, but let's say the user wants to have 4 or 5 or 2, it'll be cool. But you'll see what I mean later on. But for now, we'll just keep it like this because it's easier to get half of the shit done. Okay, so that's that done. And now, if we go to Game Manager, save that again. You can actually close this title screen script now. You don't need to, but it's pointless having it open. Game Manager script. We need to find where we set the Welsh word, and then no, actually it'll be in the shuffle words. Yeah. There we go. Assign words to button. Now we need to work a way into this so that when we set the word to the button, it needs to check if the word is Welsh. Okay, I'm going to pause while I think. Hello. So the way we're going to do this is to basically, we've got our Welsh words, and when we are going through the for loop for these buttons, we are going to check to see if playable words I is a Welsh word, and if it is, we are then going to tell the button that it's a Welsh word, and that way then we've got a kind of individuality between the buttons. Later on, when we start instantiating the buttons, like adding them to the scene dynamically, that'll be half of the battle because you can just do it when it comes alive, but right now we kind of don't have that control. So what we're going to do is we're going to do for each string X in Welsh words. So for every X within Welsh words, X can be anything, you know, if it was a list of numbers or whatever, it'll check every single one. If X dot equals, there we go. If X dot equals playable words I, and then within this we can just check then print found the Welsh word, it was playable words I. Now basically every time this function runs, it will then identify which is the Welsh word. So if we play that, so we found the Welsh word, it was Alanfa. So it does make a difference if we click the right one or the wrong one. Play again. This time it was Aberystwyth, so on, so on, so on. Grand, cool. Now, all well and good that we know which one's Welsh, we can now tell the button to tell us that it is a Welsh word. So we can delete this line, it's irrelevant. Now options button I dot get component options button script, I think we call that, yep. Dot, what did we say? Set is Welsh. Set is Welsh. And we need to change that to a lowercase u. Option button. There we go. Did that last time as well, I think. Option buttons. There we go. Hey. So option buttons. I basically whichever one we're on, set it to Welsh. I don't know. You can try if you like. Break, because that might escape the for each then, which is a bit better. Let me just Google real quick. Escape for each with break. C#. How do I jump out of a for each loop in C#? For example, return true. Yeah. So yeah, break will get us out of this. So let's say we had 50 options or whatever, or instead of going through the full list of all the Welsh words, we could just break once we found it, which is far more efficient. It's pretty shitty, obviously. If it's the last word, it still has to go through this massive function. But again, we'll cross this bridge later on down the line where, there we go, it's still doing it, grand. So in here now, we've set it to Welsh. Now, just to ensure that we're doing it in here, we're going to say print the Welsh word has been set. File, save all. So the next thing now then would be to, when we click a button, we need to check to see if, first off, is it Welsh, and if it's not, assign colours. Now this gets a bit cool because we are now going to start, we can get rid of these two functions here that we had. I said before these are kind of irrelevant, and we're just going to change this one to clicked a button. Oh, get rid of those parameters. Grand. I'll save all. And in option button script, we're going to have public void clicked an option, and then we will do an if statement. If game object lowercase g, because we're referring to this game object rather than, let's say, game object dot find, which is completely different. Game object dot get no, actually I'm just being daft. If is Welsh, so if we're Welsh, but we can't really do that because of this, so we need to do if check Welsh. Check is Welsh. What's wrong with that? No clue what that means, but let's try it anyway. If check is Welsh, then we want to basically say print you clicked the Welsh button, and after that we want to do game object dot find game manager script, nope, game manager dot get component game manager script dot click the button, clicked a button. Now coming back to what I was saying about having these buttons kind of looking after themselves, realistically if each of these buttons have to hook up to the game manager, well then it's basically a three-way thing. But what we can do now is that we can basically say, instead of going directly to the game manager, we'll click ourselves and just let ourselves know, and then still not coming up. File save all. If clicked is equal to true. What is going on? If check is Welsh is equal to true. Oh, phone call. Yeah, so off the phone, obviously. I realised what the problem is with this. We can delete this equals true thing, and because we're calling a function, not a variable, we have to put those brackets in. I don't know whether you know this, but if you're using a boolean, while you're in an if statement, you don't have to do like if bool equals false or if bool equals true. Instead, you can just do if check is Welsh. That if that's true, that is all you need to check whether it's true or not. And to check whether it's false, you just put an exclamation mark at the front. So that is if it's false, and that is if it's true. It's just a lot nicer than having to write equals true every time and so on, so on, so on. I mean, I know it's only a little bit of writing, but it just makes things easier to read and nicer to read, I think. But again, your choice. So hey ho, do what you like. Print. Oh, we're missing a bracket here. And yeah, that should be good. So now, basically, I forgot what I was really doing, to be honest, but when you click word 1, it will then, I think nope, I need to save this first, sorry. So when you click word 1, it'll then call the function that is on itself, clicked an option, and then clicked an option will root through, and it will say check to see if it's Welsh. If so, it's going to print this, and then it's going to click the trigger this function, which currently does nothing. But basically, the thing that we needed to do is show explanation. There we go. Show explanation, and that will then display what's needed. So if we click play, word 2 and 3 currently don't do anything. They're linked to like wrong things. But then word 1 should still do exactly what it was doing earlier, except it's only word 1 that does that now. And the code is a lot more streamlined because now we don't need a function for every single thing. We just assign it to itself every single time, sort of thing. So game manager script, and then clicked it. I just realized clicked it a button. I sound like the black guy from The Longest Yard. Where are we? Clicked it a button. Click the button. There we go. Save that. Now, so we drag word 2 into itself. Oh. And then we clicked an option. And then same for word 3. Clicked an option. And now if we play that, oh shit. What's wrong? Because we're still trying to click the button over there. Save that. Boom, done. So now these buttons all do the exact same thing, but now instead of having one function per button, everyone does the same thing. Exactly the same thing, except it's sorted out on a kind of micromanaged sort of way. Now, the only other thing I wanted to do was, we've done that, we've done that. Now let's assign colors to the buttons according on which word is which. Now, when we do the show explanation, we can just put a quick for loop in here. So for I, int I equals 0, I is less than buttons, option buttons, dot length, I plus plus. And now what we're going to do is we're going to try and access, first off we're going to access, is it a Welsh word? So options, I really should change that. Option buttons I dot get component, option button script dot check is Welsh. Sorry, and then wrap this in an if statement. If this button is a Welsh button, we're going to make it red. So make it red. No, make it green, sorry. Else, make it red. So now every time we show the explanation and everything, it's going to perform this quick for loop, which will check between the 3 or 4 buttons, 2, 3, 4, however many buttons it is, and we're going to make it button, that color. So now option buttons I dot get component. So remember I showed you at the start of this video that we're going to be accessing this component, the button component. So access the button dot color, I think. Nope. Button dot normal color, maybe. Oh, for God's sake, that's why. Option buttons. Okay, option buttons dot color. There we go. Colors equals new color 32 dot make it green. I don't know whether I can even do this, but we'll see. Yeah, new color. And there's a way of doing it. Green. Okay, quick pause. Okay, so I found the problem, and I am 99% of the way there, but yeah, missing a slight thing. So basically, colors implies to, let's swap to this, colors implies to every color here. So what you need to do is you need to go colors dot normal color equals color dot green. Oh, for God's sake, at least that's what I said it should. Cannot edit that because it's not a variable. What the hell is going on? Oh, okay, hip derp. Yeah, so if you look over here, the button we haven't actually changed anything with, but here we've got the UI sprite. It's the image we should be accessing, not the button. So if we just delete this up to the component, and we'll get there eventually. So image dot color equals color dot green. There we go. That should be it. Fingers crossed. And no, it still hates my guts. If we save that, I'm fairly confident this should still at least tell us what's wrong. So unexpected symbol? Ah, for God's sake, down here now. It's because I'm rolling my face off my keyboard apparently. And then save that. And then, hey, cool. And now if we option buttons, I.get component image dot color equals color dot red, and save that. And then, why do you hate me so much? Option, there we go. And there we are, finally, for God's sake. Hey, how cool is that? Oh shit, now we need to reset those. Okay, so on restart, we need to reassign these colors. So if we do, let's do that here. So basically, you can just copy this whole for loop, plonk it in here. I'm going to space it out a little though, because it's starting to get a bit crazy. And then we can just set it to, I think the color is white at least. Yeah, it's white. So we can just change this to white. But we don't need this if statement here, so it's irrelevant, you know. So we can just do this for every damn button. And if we just go back, and there we go, file, save all. Now, in theory, it should just go back and forth between them now, like you know, between white and red and green. So these, hey, perfecto. Now again, it's still a bit poo. It'd be nice with cool buttons, but as I say, I'm going to sort that out. And if we go to scenes, title scene, play, I think if you know it. Oh shizzle! What was that? Got a bug already. Interesting. I'm not going to bother trying to fix this now. I have no clue why this is happening, but I'm sure it'll be a cool one to figure out, hey? Oh, in fact, I know why it is happening. Basically, whenever... yeah, okay. These buttons aren't changing at all. So this one's Welsh, these two are not. Now this one's Welsh, but because this one was Welsh in the last turn, when we're resetting our buttons, nothing is happening. So if we come up here, we need a way of, so we need to like reset button. So public void reset this button. Shit. And then we're just basically going to set every button back to is Welsh equals false. File, save all. And then when we're restarting, in here, we're also going to do options.button. Option buttons I.get component option button script dot reset. Call that function. And now in theory, now we should never get that again. So if we just plays through a few times, man, you'd also almost think that's not. There we go. I was gonna say it's not very random if it's in the middle every time, huh? But yeah, perfecto. Now if we just leave it there, I think, and then say in the next one we'll start looking at maybe scoring and saving scores and things like that. Okay, talk to you later.